Hello readers, it's Sasha, and today I am going to be doing a spoiler-free book review for one of the most anticipated books on BookTube this year that hasn't been released yet, but I was lucky enough to get it in my Owl Crate box, and that is Where Dreams Descend by Janella and Jellies. Let's talk about what this book is. This is a fantasy book. So me and fantasy, always trying to be friends, never really trying that hard to be friends. But boy, I struck a friendship with Where Dreams Descend, and I want to talk about it. So this book is basically about a girl named, I'm not sure if I should say, if it's Kalia or Kalia. I don't know. In my head, I was saying it like Kalia, but I'm pretty sure it's Kalia. So this is about a girl named Kalia who signs on to compete in this magician's competition in a frozen city. So the city is covered in ice and kind of in ruin in some points, in some parts, I guess I should say. Hey, sorry if the lighting's weird or whatever. I just got a weird phone call, so I had to take that. So yeah, that's what it is about. It is about this girl who goes and signs up with this magician's competition, and she is trying to be the best magician so that she doesn't have to go back to where she came from, essentially. And I ended up giving this at first a 5 out of 5 star because I had so much trouble finding time for me to stop and take notes during this because I just wanted to keep reading, and to me that seemed very much like a 5-star read. However, I couldn't in good conscience give it 5 stars because I don't think it read like a 5-star book. And if I'm comparing it to the works of my own personal other 5-star books, I don't think this really compares on that level. So I decided to go with a 4 out of 5 stars. The average rating on Goodreads is actually a 3.92 right now, so I'm kind of within the ballpark of that. That is out of 1,032 ratings and 637 reviews. So already, before it's even published, it already has quite a few reviews, so that's so awesome. Representation within this book, it was kind of insinuated that one of the side characters may have been bisexual, because he was I think they made a comment where he was it doesn't matter if it was a guy or a girl who he was flinging with or whatever. I don't know. I'm pretty sure that happened. In terms of other LGBT rep, there wasn't really any. But if you are looking for a representation in terms of POC characters, pretty much everyone in this story is implied to be a person of color. So that is something to look forward to within this story. In terms of content warnings, there is violence because obviously within the synopsis, there does say that there is a danger lurking. So there is a little bit of violence, a little bit of gore in there. There is grief. Everybody within this story, the 3 main characters, Jack, Darren, and Kalia, are all struggling in their own ways with their own grief, so there is that. And there is also extreme sexism, so if that's something that bothers you, I wouldn't pick this book up because a lot of Kalia's role as a main character is to be a badass magician, but also to fight the men within show business, and I love that for her. So yeah, I'm gonna dive right into plot. The plot in this book was a bit all over the place. I really enjoyed my time reading it. I liked the plot because I liked how Kalia went from this one part of her life to this brand new, very, very different part of her life. And I liked seeing her journey. However, there were so many things added to the plot. There were so many situations that were added with not enough clarification as to why they were added or what they really were. So that brought a little bit of a damper to the plot, and it made the plot a little bit convoluted in my personal opinion, but I still really enjoyed reading it. In terms of pacing, it was really fast-paced at first. At first, the prologue, I literally was I am never putting this down. I'm going to finish this in one sitting. It was so gripping and it was so intense. I was obsessed with it. However, around chapter 4 or 5, after one of the major plot twists is revealed, it kind of slows down. And it makes sense that it slows down because the book is 400 and I think my copy was, let me double check, 447 pages. Yeah. 447 pages, and that's a lot of book, especially with how long, this book is chunky. It is a long book, right? It was a bit too long, and I think the pacing would have been a bit more fast-paced if it had been a shorter book, if there wasn't so much dialogue. Even though I loved the dialogue, but I don't think it was needed all the time. let's talk about characters. So I'm going to talk about the three main characters. I'll start with Kalia because she is the main character. She's fierce. She is my everything. I love her. Like, she's my new fictional crush. I'm obsessed with her. She was fierce. She was strong. She didn't give a shit when men were like, you can't do this. She was like, okay, sure, and then did it better. And it was just honestly really empowering and really inspiring, and I really loved that aspect of it. And a lot of people criticized Kalia as being somebody who was too much of a bitch and like wasn't really enjoyable to read about because of how bitchy she got to be to some of the other competitors, but they were all being rude to her too. Like, all of the competitors were like, you're a woman, you can't do this, and all she was really doing was just being like, watch me, but like in a little bit of a dramatic way, because that's how much of an extra queen she was. And I liked that. Like, I didn't think she went too over the top with how she acted, because everybody else was acting that way toward her, so why doesn't she get to act that way toward them? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like they got what they deserved in terms of like Kalia's attitude toward them, because everybody sucked, and Kalia just made sure they knew that, and I think that's really important. Darren, oh my god, Darren is a bean. Okay, I just felt like I needed to give him a hug because he just really needed one. I liked him. He was a bean. I really enjoyed his character. When it came to Jack, I don't know anything about Jack. I feel like I know nothing about him as a character. I feel like he was just there sometimes, but I did see Robbie from And His Nose Stuck in a Book compare him kind of like to the Darkling with how like smooth and, you know, like, ooh, he is. I don't know what that was, but we're gonna vibe. And I kind of agree. Like, I can see him being like a Darkling type person. Because although I liked him, like I liked the Darkling when I read the Grishaverse trilogy. I loved the Darkling. I thought he was a really interesting character. I feel like Jack is also that, but not as like evil. Like, I don't want you guys going into this being like, oh, Jack's evil. Like, he's not. He's got similar attributes as a character and similar vibes, and I feel like he could have gotten to the level that the Darkling got had Angelus given him a little bit more time in the book. I will also say that there is kind of a love triangle, but not really. Like, a lot of people are saying that it's like a love triangle. However, it didn't really feel all that much like a love triangle, because with love triangles, I picture like there's a person and there are two people who are vying for that person's attention and like kind of competing against each other for that person's attention. And that just wasn't happening here really all that much. Like, picture if you learned about the Pythagorean theorem, picture the triangle where there is 2 points that are really close together, and then there's another point that's just like all the way over there, but he's still just vibing, you know? That's the love triangle here. Like, it's there, but like, is it? You know, it doesn't really add anything or take away anything from the story. I also really loved all the side characters. I thought all the side characters were a lot of fun to read about. There were pretty much only badass bitches in this world, and I really liked that because a lot of guys within this world were assholes, and all the women were like,
we're just really sick of men's shit.
And if I'm being perfectly honest, ladies, same. I really liked that aspect of it. I thought it was good. I thought the characters were all really well done. And we also have Eros, who is he's probably like the most major of the side characters, if that makes sense. And he was also a bean, and I really liked his character as well. So if you're going into this hoping for characters, you're going to get some pretty spot on ones. Next, let's talk about authenticity. So is it the same as the synopsis, or does it kind of veer in a different direction? Yes, it is quite similar to the synopsis. However, there is talk in the synopsis about a danger that is lurking in the background, but I don't really think we're given any answers to what that danger is, or who it is, or what's going on. I feel like it's touched on a little, but we don't really know anything about this danger. So yes and no, I guess I should say. Let's talk about the world building. So this is the one area where I took stars off. Well, I took a star off because honestly, there was not a lot of world building, and there was a lot of dialogue between the two love interests, like hot and cold dialogue, which sometimes I like. Sometimes I like hot and cold dialogue, but in this case, it was too much, where I feel like we could have learned a lot about the magic system, a lot about the world itself, a lot about Glorian as a town, because we didn't learn anything about the actual town itself until like 50% of the way in the book. So I feel like if we had less of that hot and cold stuff, we could have had more of like an idea of where we were in the story and what the magic system was, because I didn't know anything about the magic system. I didn't know where it came from, how people use it. Like, I didn't know anything. And I feel like for a book about a competition with magic, I would have liked to know a little bit more about the magic system itself. So that kind of sucked. And they kept saying, like, instead of like, thank God, you know, they would be like, thank Zaros. I'm not sure, like, I could be completely wrong, and let me know in the comments below if I am, but to me, it seemed like that was just, like, their version of a deity, but, like, he might have something to do with the magic system, and if so, I really would have liked to know what it was. So I feel like I was let down in the world building, and it didn't really answer any of my questions that I had. In terms of writing style, Janella Angelis has a very lyrical, very whimsical writing style. And it is not the type of writing style that I typically gravitate toward. I typically like straight to the point, this is what it is, writing. Because that's just the kind of story I enjoy more. But I liked it. And I think it worked more for me because it was so dialogue heavy. Because it was so character driven and dialogue heavy. I feel like if it wasn't, then I would not have enjoyed my time reading it as much because it would have just been so flowery and I wouldn't have enjoyed it as much. So if you're really not into flowery writing, I don't think you're going to vibe with this as much as somebody who really is. Next category. What the fuck? Did it end up going where I wanted it to go? And to answer that, I don't know. Of course it didn't, because if you read it, you know that I wouldn't want the ending that happened to be the ending. However, it was such a good ending, so I'm not mad about it. It just didn't go where I wanted it to go. It didn't have the ending that I was like hoping for throughout the whole book. And that's fine, like whatever. I'm not gonna dock points or stars or whatever for an ending not going how I want it to go. I was honestly just like, the entire time I was reading the ending, I was like, but in the best way. So it was a good ending. I really enjoyed the ending. However, in terms of like actually understanding anything, the ending sucked because I feel like I got 0 questions answered and all I was left with were more questions as to what the fuck was going on. And I didn't love that. I just wanted at least like 3. Give me at least 3 of my questions answered and we'll call her a Sunday afternoon. But no, I got nothing answered and I was left with more questions. So I was like, that seems fishy. I didn't love that. Because I feel like this is set up in a brilliant way for a sequel. But you can't rely so heavily on a sequel to carry on your work. I feel like for a first book, especially, and going into a series, you should have at least a slightly cohesive wrap-up of the story. So finally, I'm just going to get to any positives or negatives I had throughout the story that didn't really fit into any categories. I wanted more steam. It was not a like sex novel, like it wasn't smut at all because there were no sex scenes, but the kissing scenes that there were between the 2 love interests, I wanted more in my life. I was literally like, the whole time the chemistry was so much, and there were a couple moments where they were like teasing each other and I was like, yes, bitch. I loved it so much. Like, I loved that part of it. And I wanted more of those scenes. And I wanted them to bang. I really just wanted them to bang. And maybe they did, but I didn't get to be there for it. And I was low-key bitter because I was like, I just want to read about it, which is weird because I don't really like smut or like sex scenes in young adults. I don't like sex in young adults at all in a lot of ways, but that, like, oh my god, I was literally like, the whole time, it was so good, so good. Let's talk about a review I saw. This has nothing to do with the story. I just thought it was very on brand for what Kalia was trying to fight against. So there was this man on Goodreads that said,
at times, the feminism theme was extremely heavy-handed. I'm all for it, and you have my attention. Just don't drown me in it.
And I feel like that's very on brand with what Kalia was trying to fight fight against, because people within Glorian, the city, would be like, oh, there's a woman performing, that's cool. And then she would outperform the men, and these same people would be like, oh, that's too immodest for a woman. Like, she shouldn't be on the stage. Like, and why is she dressed like that? Like, it always goes back to women's clothing. Like, it is 2020. Can we not give a shit about cleavage for once? Like, I'm sorry. These two balls of fat come together in a way that makes you turned on, but like, it's 2020 and we should be allowed to show our ball of fat coming together. Like, so thank you, man on Goodreads, for proving exactly what Kalia was fighting against in this story. But I will just say that this is definitely a very feminist heavy novel. I didn't have an issue with it because I completely agree with everything that Kalia is fighting against, but there are going to be people who pick this up and they're going to be like, this is too heavy, this is too on the nose, like this, it didn't need to be so intensely feminist. And it's just like, if you're one of those people who isn't really a huge fan of like feminist themes in literature, whatever, don't pick this up because you're going to rate it badly based on your own agenda. And I don't think that sits well with me. So don't do it. That is everything I have to say about Where Dreams Descend. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I really genuinely hope you give this book a chance because it was honestly very fire. Like, it was a good story with good characters, and I enjoyed almost every single second of it. So I really hope that you give this a chance, and I cannot wait until this book actually comes out so more people can have access to it. And I definitely cannot wait till the sequel comes out. So that is everything. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe for more content. I post twice a week, and I sometimes post good things and sometimes it's trash. It's like a 50-50 roulette game with me, so let's have fun together. And until next time, bye readers!